Adobe Lightroom catalogues and whether to have a single catalogue for all of your pictures or whether to break things up and have one catalogue per shoot. Importantly, what are the differences between those two in performance? This isn't going to be a general optimised Lightroom video. There's loads of places to find that information. I'll link to one below. But you can make massive differences in your performance by setting up your catalogue correctly, and this will show you how. So I often see photographers recommending to use a single catalogue for each shoot. Now the reasons for this make sense in that the idea is by keeping it small, it can be really fast to run, but there's two main reasons why I disagree with that. First off, it's how the data is stored in Lightroom. So in Lightroom, all of your data is stored in a database. The images are not stored in the database, they're elsewhere. All of your changes, your metadata, all the data from the camera is all inside a database. And an SQL-like database on which Lightroom's based is extremely fast to navigate around. It's all linked, so you can store millions and millions and millions of photos in there without any slowdown at all. And in fact, I've got over 1 million photos, and it's just as fast now as it was when I had 1 or 2 shoots in there. Okay, so that's one reason. The other reason is the way that Lightroom operates when you load a new catalogue in. So if you've ever tried to load a new catalogue into Lightroom or start a new catalogue, it makes you exit the app and then it loads back up with a new catalogue loaded. And that's a pretty clunky way to do it. Now, from my experiences in the software development background, if something's that clunky, you can guarantee that wasn't the intended way that it's going to work. If it was meant to work like that with multiple catalogues, then you'd be able to have more than one open, you'd be able to flip between them with tabs or something like that. It wouldn't be this kind of rip it all down and build it back up again. So they're the two reasons why I don't believe that's the best way to do it. So there's loads of advantages of having a single catalogue with all of your images in it. You might want to revisit old work. So you might want to go back to an old shoot and re-edit something, or someone might ask for an old photo, or rather a different image to be edited. You can very quickly go back to that shot, that shoot. So there's loads of advantages of having all of your work in a single catalogue. You might want to go back and revisit an old shoot. A client might ask for some different photos. You can really quickly go back and edit them. You don't have to dig through your hard disk to find that one catalogue. Or another thing, you might have a venue collaboration and you want to select all of the images from a particular venue that you rated as 5-star that had a bride and groom in it. All right, so you're very easy to be able to do that if you had all your images in Lightroom, make a collection, export all of those images in one go and send it to the client or send it to the venue. If you had to do that with multiple catalogues, you'd have to load each catalogue independently, export some images, go back to your folder, find the right catalogue for that for the next shoot at the same venue, load that one. You would just never do it. So again, that's why I'm 100% sure that that isn't the way to do it. So why is it then that when we're shooting dozens and dozens of weddings and the catalogue grows and grows, our system slows down? So it sounds like I'm contradicting myself here. The system does slow down, but it's not to do with the catalogue size, it's to do with previews. Okay, so your raw data is stored somewhere else on your system, either externally or on your laptop, so that's not in the catalogue. But what does get put into your catalogue is previews. So your smart previews, your one-to-one previews, your standard previews, sometimes all of those for every image will be put into your catalogue, and that does grow it. And when your catalogue is getting to sort of 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 gigabytes big, it does then seem to slow down your system. So there's a really useful sounding setting in Lightroom, which is all about automatically discarding your previews. So it's all about, you can set it up to say 2 months after each shoot, discard those previews so you're left with just the latest ones. But it never works. It never has done for me. Whatever I set it to, the catalog grows and grows and grows until it's 50 gigabytes and it does start to slow down. But there's a way around it. So we're just going to move over to the computer now and I'll show you how I keep my catalogue really small despite having 1 million photos in it, and it keeps everything running really quickly. Okay, so here we are in Lightroom. Very quickly to go through the different types of previews we have in Lightroom. You have your standard size previews. That's what lets you, in the library module, just rip through. So I'm holding down my keys as fast as I can go through them. So why people say they need photo mechanic to go through things really quickly, I don't know, other than the fact you have to load everything into Lightroom first. But so that's standard size previews. If you zoom into an image, that's when we create these one-to-one previews, and that takes a while to do. And this is why I don't build these by default, because they just use up loads of space and they take a long time to go through a whole wedding's worth of images. But it does mean that you can go straight into that And if we go back to it, that will be there straight away. So if you do that to a whole shoot, then you can just very quickly go through all of the images at the highest level of detail. All right, so that's the previews in the library module. In the develop module, it's different. It doesn't use those previews at all. It creates these views on the fly, and also you can create a smart preview, so you can control whether you have smart previews created or not. What smart previews let you do is a bit different. So that lets you, so the previews in the library module, the one-to-one previews and the standard side previews, are purely an efficiency thing. So if you don't have them loaded, Lightroom creates them on the fly. So it's just to improve performance. In the develop module, though, these smart previews do change the way the system works, because this means that if I don't have my original image connected to my laptop, if it's on an external drive, which it usually is, then it means I can continue to edit that image and I can export smaller size versions of it and so on. So I don't need the source image. Okay, so this bit here shows you which of those previews you've got loaded, and you can actually see that from the library module as well. It'll tell you for each of these, it's going to show me that it's got the original and the smart preview loaded. All right, so how does that all link back to our catalogs? So if we go over to our catalog settings up here, we can see, firstly in here, it's quite useful. So it shows you where your catalog is, because you may not know where your catalog lives. So that's where it is, and you can bring up your Finder or your Explorer window there to go straight to the folder, which we'll do shortly. If you go to the file handling section, this is showing me that I've got 12 gigabytes of smart previews loaded, and I've got nearly 40 gigabytes of standard previews. Now this is why I think that doesn't work particularly, because I deleted this file maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and I definitely haven't accrued 37 gigabytes of preview images in here. So I'm pretty sure that doesn't work exactly as planned. Maybe it just discards the one-to-one versions, which are just really huge. I don't know, but this is the problem, that it'd be kind of good if that would just trim down your previews file completely, or there was an option to do that so that it didn't get out of hand, because that just does go a bit crazy. So if we let's go back to that screen, and we're going to open that up. All right, so this is showing our Lightroom catalog. So I'm going to just close Lightroom a second, because that's going to make these lock files. So those lock files are there is just to protect things while Lightroom is running. So they're just temporary files. You don't need to worry about those. So this is essentially, the catalog is made up of all of these files. This is the main database catalog with all of your edits in. Again, the images are somewhere else completely. Sync data, we don't want to touch that. These two here, these previews, which is 39 gigs, and smart previews, are the ones that you can delete, and they will just get recreated the next time you load Lightroom. So, for example, in the past, I've seen this get to, I think I had one, before I started doing this had got to 200 gigabytes, because I'd assumed that Lightroom was going to keep that at a sensible limit. All right, so what I always do, just through force of habit of not wanting to make any mistakes, I'll rename it rather than delete it, just rename it for the time being. And then once I'm confident everything's working, then I can go back and just actually delete that file and save the space. So now if I bring up Lightroom again, we will see something. We'll see a couple of things. Once we go back into here, we should see a previews. There we go. So we saw a previews file get created again, because Lightroom's detected that previews isn't there anymore. So it's created a new one. As you can see, it's growing, because it's seen that it needs to create previews for all of these photos. So that's just directly from the raw. So it's creating a preview of the raw and my edits. So that's going to go through, and it will do that automatically. So you just need to bring up the shoot that you wanted to do that for, and it will just sit there and shunt away. It doesn't take long. You can see it's going through them pretty quickly. But what's going to happen is then that previous file is going to get to 1 or 2 gigs over a number of weddings or shoots, rather than being so huge. So that's a really useful thing to have. You can also do the same for smart previews as well. So we could remove smart previews, and again, you would then need to, if we didn't have smart previews loaded, it doesn't do it automatically like this. You would then have to go and recreate the smart previews for the shoot that you want. So let me close that again. I'm just going to I'll delete that backup one because I know that's going to be fine. I'm going to delete smart previews as well. Okay, and now I'm going to bring Lightroom back up. All right, so it's going to continue loading those previews in. But now if we look at them, so let's go on to, say, one of these, we can see that it doesn't have the smart preview loaded, it's just got the original photo. So what I always do, once I've cleared down that previous file, I will usually go to perhaps the last two or three shoots I've done. So perhaps I'll do that one, those two weddings, which is, they're all going to be selected now, so I can do Control or Command A and select all of them, and then Library, Previews, Build Smart Previews, and you can, as you saw, you could force it to build the standard previews as well at that point. So let's do that as well. So going to go Previews, Build Standard Size Previews. Now this will just sit there for a while now doing that, but what we'll find is that, so if we go to that one in particular, we should find that it's going to start building smart previews for all those. There we go. So those smart previews are starting to come in as it goes through all of those weddings. And then what I've ended up with is the last two weddings. So that's the two shoots that I'm likely to want the best performance, and I'm likely going to want to have smart previews so I can edit offline. But I've managed to do that, and I've saved what we're at now. So we've got smart previews is at 25 meg, and that's going to be growing. And our standard size preview is at 180 meg. So we've saved about 30, in the moment, we've saved about 38 gig or 50 gig actually in total with both of those. So that's freed up a whole bunch of space on my disk. Yes, it's going to sit here for a little bit, but you can see it's not going to take forever to do that. So maybe that's going to take another quarter of an hour to do that. And then I'm going to have all the previews I need for the latest shoots. And what I'm not going to have is previews for all of these older shoots, which I'm not really going to go back and use. And if I did want to go back and look at them and recreate them or re-edit them, then as soon as you go back into them, then obviously the smart size previews are going to get created straight away. The standard size previews rather are going to get created straight away. So it just means there's a bit of a lag while I go through here, but it's going to load it each time, bearing in mind Lightroom's doing stuff already, but it's plenty fast enough. Okay, so hopefully that's been useful. So yeah, always go back to, I'll leave that going. Always go back to your catalog, get rid of the smart previews file, get rid of the previews file. You could do this every few months or every couple of shoots or however you want to do it as part of your workflow, but keeping those files down to a sensible size is good for performance of your laptop generally, because if you're using up all of your data on your disk, it's going to slow things down. But I think it does mean that Lightroom just takes a while to be able to spin through so many images when this is at the tens, hundreds of gigabyte size. All right, so the catalog there, incidentally, that's the one that I've only got one catalog, so that's only at 8 gigs with 500,000 photos or something like that. That isn't going to be big enough to cause any slowdown. And as I said, that's designed to be very quickly accessed, and all the photos are indexed properly. So it's not searching through all of your edits to find the one it needs. Databases just don't work like that. So yeah, I mean, what you could do is if you wanted to have like a middle of the road, if you didn't like the idea of having all of your photos in one catalogue, perhaps create one every year. But I do think creating one every shoot gives more problems than it solves, because it means you can't then see all of your work as a whole and start using all the powerful Lightroom tools to filter through things and find the images you need. All right. Either way, whether you do it per shoot or by just having one catalog like I've got, keeping this file backed up is extremely important. You don't need to back up all of these previews, because if you lost everything, that's fine. You can just recreate all of those. But this is the one that you have to, that's all of your edits for all of your photos. So make sure that's backed up somewhere safe. All right, guys, that's it. Hopefully that's useful. Please comment if you've got any questions on that, or if you've got any comments or something you think that could be improved, or any ideas you've got, the way that you work that's different to this. It'd be great to hear all of that stuff. So I look forward to hearing from you. Okay, thanks. Bye.